Hey folks, Professor Gray here. Ready to talk to you about what to do when you are given a confidence interval and you want to find the point estimate and or margin of error used to make it. Well, when you're given a confidence interval, keep in mind that the point estimate is in the middle of that interval. The very middle of a confidence interval is your point estimate. What's a point estimate? Well, a point estimate is either the sample mean, that's x bar, or the sample proportion, that's p hat. Also keep in mind that the margin of error is the distance or the difference between the point estimate and the upper bound of the interval. It's also the difference or the distance between the point estimate and the lower bound of the interval. This illustration has a number line in it. Keep in mind that when you make a confidence interval, the point estimate is in the very middle of your confidence interval. This will be either x bar or p hat, depending on the type of interval. Then you spread out on each side of the point estimate by the margin of error. That's E. That gives you your lower bound and your upper bound. That's how you make it. So to find the point estimate, we'll take the upper bound, add it to the lower bound, and divide by 2. That'll give us the number in between. That's the point estimate. For the margin of error, notice that the length of the interval is 1, 2 margins of error. So the interval from the lower bound to the upper bound is 2 margins of error long. Well, armed with that knowledge, we can find the margin of error by taking the upper bound and subtracting the lower bound and dividing by 2. Why does this work? Well, U minus L, upper minus lower, would give me the length of the entire interval. Half of that length is E, the margin of error. So I find that length, U minus L, and divide by 2 to get the margin of error. That's when I'm given a confidence interval. Let's try an example. We'll find the point estimate and margin of error for the confidence interval given here. 0.0489 to 0.1253. So for this example, my lower bound is 0.0489 and my upper bound is 0.1253. The point estimate will be what's in the middle, and the margin of error is the distance from the point estimate to that upper bound, or the distance between the lower bound to the point estimate. So we'll use the formula to find the point estimate, and keep in mind that for this point estimate we're talking about p hat because the confidence interval is for the population proportion. So p hat will be the upper plus the lower divided by 2, which is 0.1253 plus 0.0489, all divided by 2. Using my calculator, we'll make short work of that. So I get 0.0871. So my point estimate, or p hat, is 0.0871. Now to find the margin of error, instead of adding the upper and lower bounds, I'll subtract. So upper minus lower divided by 2. And I get 0.0382. That's my margin of error. And that's the distance between the point estimate and the upper bound, the distance between the lower bound, and the point estimate as well. So, if you're given a confidence interval, you can do a little bit of arithmetic and you can find all the pieces that go into it, the point estimate and the margin of error.